Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for showing up this afternoon. Those of you who are in remote sites, we'll talk about that and make sure we connect with you in a bit. But if you are not asking questions at this time, please make sure your mics are muted. That helps out as we move along with the process. Today we're going to have with us a fellow that I've had a chance to work with for the last 3 years with my Parkinson's, and that's Mr. Northtfleet. Len's a physical therapist here in Spokane. He owns and operates the NKS Rehab Center, and he's going to speak to us about some of the elements of therapeutic safety strategies and how to deal with Parkinson's disease and other movement disorders. With that, I'll turn it over to Len, and we'll get going here. And again, watch your mics in there remote. Thanks.
Again, I'm Len Northtfleet, physical therapy from NKS Rehab. I specialize in Parkinson's for the last 20 years, and what we're doing today is working on therapeutic strategies as it relates to Parkinson's. Okay? Safety is one of the predominant aspects of Parkinson's that people are worried about. The fear of falling, the aspect of falling, catastrophic injuries related to Parkinson's are usually related to falling again. So again, we're going to go over a lot of different strategies, and I call them strategies because really what we have to look at on Parkinson's is individually. Oftentimes it's one side versus both sides, but it can progress to both sides of your body. So in those aspects, how you compensate for your Parkinson's can be just as damaging as the Parkinson's themselves. Okay, these are a lot of symptoms that you can address, and we'll go over those briefly throughout this lecture, but we're really trying today is focus on different strategies in different situations. So at the end of the lecture, I'll have a question and answer, and you guys have to give me safety specific related questions if you can, so that I can address those questions individually, because safety is very individualistic depending on your environment, your change environment, as well as if you go on vacation, your family home, or your vacation home, or your kids' home. Everything changes as your environment changes. So therefore, your strategies may have to be affect. Some of these basic strategies will help you deal with the aspects of safety. So safety in you. So as you can tell, there's a lot of safety signs out there. Unbelievable amount of signs. So watch out for evacuation. So one of the biggest ones that I talked to some of my patients recently is about falling out of bed. And if we fall out of bed, then we can have some issues related to, again, head injuries are a big cause of that, shoulder injuries. This little cartoon I found online is a prime example of exactly what happens. So if I can scroll down here for a second. I don't know how to use this computer.
Does not help.
I just need to scroll over. There we go. And the interesting about this cartoon is quit chasing your dreams. And believe me, with Parkinson's disease and some of your med reactions, you can have some very vivid dreams. To a point, you're chasing them out of your bed, or yourself out of your bed. So it's one of the catastrophic injuries. When I want to look at this little picture, you can see the nightstand right at his head type thing. This is one of the things you have to be aware of. If you set up your environment so that is not going to be an obstacle for you for potential injury, make sure the doors are closed and the drawers are closed, so therefore, again, you don't get catastrophic injuries in case you do roll out of bed. Some strategies you can do when rolling out of bed are simply use your sheets as tight corners. Those people who are in the military can relate to this. Really tuck your corners in. So I'm usually talking about the legs. If you can tuck the sheets in right up to your waist so you can still kind of roll, but also keep your feet floating at the same time. That'll allow you a passive barrier, and it's important that we give a passive barrier to you. So if you roll, you're allowed to move freely in bed, but also give yourself a slight restrictive range. So if you start going over, you can feel that tension. Okay. In extreme cases, I also add a bed bolster, which is just like a large roll towel where we tuck it underneath the bottom sheet, and it basically, when you roll over, it gives you a little bumper. Again, if just a little bit so you don't go over to that next level. You can also use a body pillow, may help you too, if you're going to really reach and roll over. The bigger the obstacle, however, gives you less movement. And that's what I want to caution you on. Anything that you give for your safety can also limit your motion, I think. So another aspect, I think, is if you really have difficulties, is you can move it approximate to the wall. If you're really falling out of bed often, 1 or 2 times a night, it's really not worth your long-term health or risking a catastrophic injury, i.e. a skull fracture, dislocated shoulder, a broken hip, to a point that limits your mobility. It's going to make it harder to be mobile, but at least you're going to limit your risk and improve your safety. Any questions thus far on bed mobility? You'll have to open up your mind as how it affects you. Okay. So let's go to the rest. I was going to go through room to room, but then that lecture would have been probably 2 or 3 hours long, and I don't think that's fair to you guys. So. We got our Quit Chasing Your Dreams twice on here for some reason. So if you look at the rest of the, what you want to really keep on is your visual eye range. That's what I've been working with my patients for the last several months on, is this new strategy of keeping your eyes at eye level or above. If you can start tracking at those levels, you're going to be higher level, upright posture, therefore you're not going to be bent over and festinating or stutter stepping. It's important that you maintain that eye level. If you're in the kitchen, then you can use your rolling walker or a rolling tray to carry things. What I want you to avoid is the aspect of trying to pick something up and turn and pivot at the same time. The classic example is the gallon of milk. That could be about 5 pounds, usually use both hands. And now if you're not used to carrying something and you twist, your risk of falls are going to be 10 times greater. Now if you use a tray and allow that to, again, not ever turn and pivot or twist and pivot and step over your foot, i.e. a crossover step in front of you, then you're going to be able to do what is called side-to-side walking. And you can use a countertop or, again, a walker or a serving tray, a rolling serving tray, as a greater ability to go around that. Especially as people add islands, you can have greater countertops, but it reduces your rotation aspect in your kitchen. So it makes a little bit of tighter spot. And the first rule of the opposite of rules is never turn and twist, because that's what's going to cause you to lose your balance. I'm going to lose my balance every time, especially if I have a balance disorder. So, all right, so we already went over that. So we went over the crossing step, avoid sudden stops and goes. It's something that I've discussed with you guys at length in some of the newsletters, is avoid distraction. If you decide to go one direction, maintain that path and finish that path. Try to avoid as much distraction as you can, i.e. the dog barking, the ringing telephone. If you do have to stop, what you want to do is stop first, then look to the direction you want to go, then pivot, then turn. Okay, it has to be something that you have to control, because if you're often case in a Parkinson's situation, you'll have a somewhat a propulsive gait where you're kind of throwing yourself forward. Okay, in that aspect, if you suddenly stop, you're going to have to cause yourself to have a high balance reaction, and you may not be able to control that reaction. Either your foot reaction may be too slow, or your reflex reaction may be too slow, and again, causing a fall. Stairs is another way of what we're doing. One thing happens when you're going on stairs. Generally, Parkinson's people do not have difficulty with going upstairs. The greatest fear is going downstairs. It takes a lot of strength. If you have arthritic knees, that's a difficult thing to do if you have a bad knee. So again, it reduces what's called your eccentric loading of your knee, or your stepping down ability. In that aspect, your hand placement is essential when dealing with stairs. You want to keep your hand slightly forward in front of you as you go upstairs and lean into the step. okay? Going downstairs is just a reverse. You keep your hand at the railing at your side, and you lean back and then try to extend your heel. That'll help your knee control the gravity, but I'll also reduce the temptation of wanting to lean forward, grab the rail, and tiptoe down. That's inherently dangerous because A, it puts your ankle in an adverse reaction where you can sprain your ankle. It also puts you in that forward flexed Parkinson's position, and then you've got gravity pulling you down. A side note to that, it's the same principle of going uphill. If I want to go uphill, I lean into the heel, and I kind of do a lunge step. Going downhill, especially if I have my garbage can, I don't want my garbage can in front of me when I'm going downhill. Does that make sense? Because it's going to be an extra weight and gravity, and if you really fill it up, it's going to be up to 50, 100 pounds of weight pulling you downhill. Okay, that would cause, again, a catastrophic reaction where you may not be able to control that speed. Therefore, I've had a patient almost do the dead splits, and he was not built to do splits, and it really almost split him in half because, again, he got it in front of him, he leaned into it, and it literally pulled him almost down, even though he tried to control that weight. So that's really what we want to work on is always, when we're looking at the rule of opposite, I've talked about this in my newsletter to you guys. Trying to go a little bit faster than usual just because we want to kind of have a lot of questions because safety is a very specific thing. So the rule of opposites, basically the simple principle is I look first before I leap, and I lean the opposite direction the way I go. Now, if I can ask a few questions of you, if I'm going forward, everybody, which way do I lean? A little louder, back. If I go backwards, which way do I lean? Forward. That's the one time I'll let you actually look down at your feet when you're going backwards, and it's a very safe endeavor if you do the right technique. When you're leaning, wanting to step back, just look at your toes, and then bend your knee and touch your toe, and take a step back. So I can do that in reverse reaction. Again, look at your toes, bend your knees, and step back. Now it's important that you don't roll back on your heel, because if I roll back here and look up, I'm already in a falling mechanism. Now one thing that's interesting with Parkinson's people, everybody says Parkinson's people have bad balance. In reality, you're overusing your balance constantly. It's literally like living on a balance beam, because you're constantly on that edge of the cliff trying to balance and work that balance. And like any system, if it's overused, it's less efficient and it's more difficult to use when you need it. Okay? It's not that you have bad balance, but you both have a medication that is telling you to go at all times because you're taking oral medication to say go or help you go. That's on 100% of the time. So that's when you see dyskinesias or athetoid-like motions. So, and then you also have that disease saying don't go, or stop you in your tracks, or make that difficulty just taking that first reaction. Once you get going, generally with Parkinson's, it's very easy to start going. So let's see, caregiver training is a big example of safety. If you are a caregiver of a person with Parkinson's, it's essential that you maintain your safety, because if both of you guys get hurt, then it's going to be a problem, because both of you guys are going to be in trouble. So, and I talk about this because it is a huge issue with seniors living by themselves. If it's a couple living by themselves, how to work safely with yourself is just as important as the person's safety that you're working with. Okay? I talk a little bit about how to help without helping. It's important that we first do, that we don't push things away, we pull things towards us. That's basic ergonomics. It's the same thing if you're lifting boxes as lifting people. If we keep our eyes level with whatever we're lifting or assisting, I mean, if they're in the bed and they're in a low bed, you need to get low, just as low as the patient is. We'll keep the patient at eye level. If we look at keep your posture upright, you just want to basically general rules, keep your ears over your shoulders over your hips. That means if I'm sitting all the way down, or I'm standing up. As soon as I bend over, I use my back. The one thing you can do if you're working on bed mobility, which is actually the hardest assisting posture for a person assisting with Parkinson's, is put one knee in the bed next to the patient. So again, it creates a barrier, so they can't roll out. They're automatically going to be more confident because that's the greatest fear. They'll actually resist you. I'm talking a very high level Parkinson's affected person who may not be able to do this by themselves, of course. Now what you want to do is cue the patient to reach over and then bend the opposite leg, just like this. If I'm rolling over onto my left side, I'm going to bend my knee and reach over, okay? And that's exactly how I pivot too. So that's a good sequence to start turning, because if I want to get something out of the fridge, I turn and pivot and reach. I don't reach and lean because then I can lose my balance. So it's the same system over and over again. When you're assisting as a caregiver, it's important that you're cueing in light ways, meaning if you cue the person that you're assisting to reach, just hold their hand slightly and then give them a little cue with their knee, and then they're already on their side. Now the next thing is swoop their knees up towards your waist and then have them hold on to your shoulder, never your neck. Basically, the human body is a very efficient system. If somebody holds on my neck, what am I going to be using? I'll be using my neck muscles to help support that way. Now, most people are over 100 pounds, so that's going to be a tremendous amount of pain and instability, and if they get scared, your hair's in the way, and a lot of different things can happen uncontrolled that you can't. Now, as you roll that person up or swoop them up, the one thing you have to always be careful of is dizziness, both in you as well as the person you're helping. If they get dizzy, they can just roll right over. So as you get that person up, you cannot stay at the side, because again, that's my poor mechanics of me. Just step in front of them and let them sit for a moment. That'll allow them to recover, allow you to recover, and both of you should not hold your breath during that sequence. And believe it or not, 90% of dizziness and orthostatic hypotension is related to breathing. I hold my breath. Even if you hold your breath for 10 or 15 seconds and then don't inhale, you're still holding your breath. Okay, so breathing out is essential as much as breathing in, I think so. We did this one, we did the eyes. Walking assist, I teach, one thing you do not want to do on walking when you're assisting a patient for safety is pull by the hand or grab the walker. And believe me, I've seen this, caregivers do it. Again, you're in a hurry, so again, it's trying to get that. The reaction to the Parkinson's patient is to lock the brakes. Okay, and if you lock the brakes, you're trying to walk at the same time. That's classic stutter stepping or festinating of the Parkinson's patient. So you can easily get facilitated to do the wrong type of walking. The biggest one I like is called the promenade, where basically if you're standing next to your partner, you're holding your hand lightly into their hand. My mic is my Parkinson's person's hand, and then I do light tactile support on the side, and we sashay together. It's a very easy way to do, especially if you're in a crowd or if it's a busy mall or something where the Parkinson's patient's visual line is going to get distracted several times. Okay. The next one I call is the guiding motion. Basically, if you're a pretty high level Parkinson's patient and your spouse can handle it, especially if you're a big guy and if you're a 6'5" guy and you got a 5'2" wife, be careful because you can break her, type thing. So, but again, you can rest your hand, and this is how basically blind people are assisted. You basically have the patient, you guide the patient to the hand, and then you go. You never pull, you just go. Now, the interesting thing with Parkinson's is you can pace a Parkinson's patient. Just be careful if they start losing your shoulder, they're falling behind, you can't do that pace anymore. It's a great way, again, in a tight spot, down a narrow pathway, it'll be enough bridge for them to guide, and you can walk pretty fast without them pressing down. Now, if they're pressing down hard, that means what? They're stutter stepping and they're locking, and all it is you stop, and they stop. type thing. So if they're pulling away, then it's going too fast. It's really easy for the partner in front to understand what the person is back without looking at them. Now that's something that probably should be instructed in clinical settings. So if you want some free tips, just come into my facility. I can show you those tips. But again, that's another great way. Now, if they really need assistance, you can do the dance format, which is basically you're just grabbing lightly on the hands and just swaying back and forth in a waltzing type motion. It's a great way in the morning if you're having difficulty or your partner's having difficulty that you're assisting, is just getting that natural sway side to side, waltz with them until they get going type thing. Especially stay close to the person that you're waltzing with, because you should be close because that is a natural barrier. It's going to make them stay upright and look them in the eye, have them look in your eyes. Again, unless he's 6'5" and she's 4'8", then he's looking down, and then that's not a good idea. She's looking up, and then he's looking down. So try to get an equal eye level as you can. So any questions? That's pretty much the lecture. Trying to go a little fast just because I don't want to go too long, but also open up for specific safety questions. Okay? Sure.
I'm back. We're going to take a quick look here. First of all, I failed to introduce myself. I just assume when people know me or wish they could forget me. I'm George Amon with the Parkinson's Resource Center here in Spokane. And we work with the others, with the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation to help provide these things with the help of Albertsons and St. Luke's, and I'm missing somebody. Northwest Parkinson's. In the typical practice, we'll go through the list here. As I call your name up, if you have a question, please indicate that you yes or no. We'll wait for the question. If not, after you say yes or no, make sure you mute your mic. Anchorage, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you.
No.
Billings, any questions?
What if someone falls? How do they get up?
When assisting somebody after a fall, if they're on the ground, first and foremost is to make sure they can move all their extremities without pain. If they hurt and hurt extremely, call 911, go and assist them up. They could have a fracture. If you can get them moved up with a fracture, you can cause internal bleeding, and then that could be catastrophic. A fracture is bad enough, but you don't want them bleeding out too, especially if you're on Coumadin. You have to be really aware of that because a fall can cause excessive amount of bleeding, especially if you strike your head. So a little head bump can mean a big deal very quickly. So always get checked out after a fall. Now, depending on the type of person that you're lifting, if they're very large, you may have to get assistance. Now, if they can move and they have no pain, what they need to do is, if they can, roll over on their hands and knees and then have them crawl to the nearest chair, and then they can literally help climb up. You don't want to try to deadlift somebody off the floor or try to grab them by the hands and pull. That mechanism right there is a back injury for me, and I'm not going to help them at all. What a person on the floor is going to do is try to pull themselves up. That's the worst way to get up because it takes a tremendous amount of strength to climb up. So what you want to try to get them to do is use as much legs as they can. Now that's very specific. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, you can call 911. The fire department, actually, 80% of their calls are people who fall. So in helping people, seniors who fall.
Anything else in Billings?
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to mute your mic. Clarkston.
Yes, we have one question I have is, or we have three questions. How do we get the newsletter? And after that, two more questions.
Okay.
The newsletter.
It's the Parkinson's Resource Newsletter. Do you guys get that? Kate can help.
I'm referring to the newsletter that you said that you send out.
Yeah, I usually address that with the Parkinson's. I send it with them.
Parkinson's Resource Center.
And it also
Okay,
can be
thanks.
probably on their website as well.
It's a delay. All right, number two question. When climbing stairs, my husband has trouble with his right foot. Only his toes go on the riser. And how do you make the whole foot go on the riser instead of just part of the foot going on the riser?
That's a common safety hazard. The key is he can practice with a phone book and planting his foot on a small step. That allows him to work on what's called proprioception, or knowing where his body's in relationship. You need to make sure he's stretching his ankles out, his heel cords out, often because it could be just tone and tightness, causing the foot to be in a plantar flex or toe-pointed position that won't allow him to plant firmly. I assume he's going up or down, or both?
Going up is when he has trouble getting the right foot.
And that's where he needs to, is his Parkinson's side on his right or left, or both?
Both sides.
Both sides. So he needs to put a little bit longer weight on his left foot in order to allow the right foot to completely clear and get on the step. It's just a matter of a delayed step. If you're helping him, just gently rock into his left as he brings up his right foot. Sometimes it also takes a verbal cue. Make sure you fully step on there. He's at risk because with Parkinson's, if his big toe is rising and his ankle's twisting in what's called supination, or landing outside on his foot, he's at risk of hurting that ankle, and he's going to be reducing his ability to go up that step and causing more tone.
Okay, third question. What exercises do you recommend for posture?
Basically, there's numerous ways you can work on posture exercises. I always start on laying down in a hook line or knee up position, working on your center core balance, and then also working on your chin tuck and lifting your chest. Now you can do that in any posture. You can do it in your car, you can do it in a chair, you can do it standing up. The easiest is to start laying down, doing a pelvic tilt or a butt tuck, chin down, and then holding your chest up. And that's the easiest way to work on posture initially. Then building up on that is different extension exercises that you can do. Laying on your stomach is a critical aspect of being able to work on your posture because it gives your back, neck, and hips the ability to be fully stretched out and allow it to be open and relaxed. Okay? What you have to realize is when you bend over, you open up your spine. When you stand up, you're in neutral. When I extend, I'm able to lock my spine. So again, that's the principle of stability, is you work, again, into neutral, and then you can build into extension. Any questions on that?
I think that's it. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you, Clarkson. Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene?
We don't have any questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Dayton? I'm going to come here next if you've got questions. Dayton? Anybody in Spokane? Question here? Dr. Moyer.
When I first began to have symptoms, forgetting was the worst one that I had, and I still have it. Now that I don't think was just because I forget for all the time, but it was just really annoying, and it still is pretty bad.
I mean, I think that's an important, Dr. Moyer's basically question is when you forget, that can be a big safety aspect. You may forget to stand up fully, you may just forget what you're doing. It's just a matter of, if you can maintain a good pathfinding pattern, meaning a repeated pattern that you do every day, every morning, every afternoon, and maintain that motor plan, you can improve your cognitive memory and your motor memory, meaning you do the same pattern every day. It's easier not to think about what I'm going to do next. The easiest way to work on that is you can lay out the clothes the night before, you can set the shoes up right in that same spot, in the same chair, everything's set up in the same manner. So again, it's already there, there's no brainer involved, So again, you can just go out and do your motion. The more distraction you have, and yeah, memory loss is a big distraction. Because as soon as you think you forgot something, guess what? That becomes a preoccupation. And now you're not thinking about what you're doing, you're thinking about what you forgot, or what you should do, or what you forgot, instead of doing what you're doing at that moment. And that can cause a myriad of issues if you're doing something either with your hands or walking at the same time. That's what I talk about, is be very direct, point A to point B. Think, I'm going to the kitchen. Don't even think about what I'm going to get in the kitchen until you get to the kitchen. So, or the laundry room, or the bathroom, because that thought process can really cause you to go, and as soon as you go, it really will stop you in your tracks. Okay? The one thing to add to that is your visual line. If you look and check yourself often, that's another way to kind of, am I okay? Am I okay? It's reinforcing your safety behavior, but it actually causes you to, again, go into a falling-like behavior, whether it's shuffle walking or inability to get up. I try to cue my patients and Parkinson's patients not to look all over the place for something to hold on to. If that's your first reaction, you're already going into a protective response, and you're going to cause yourself to be off balance if that thing you're reaching for is out of reach. Okay, and you may be sitting down at the time, and that's a dangerous situation to be, because you can literally fall out of a chair by reaching, type thing. So that's one of the hardest things to break once you start reaching, because it's just a natural thing to protect yourself.
Those of us with Parkinson's recognize we make lists real quick, and I know that's what happened to me. I stopped being able to remember what I was doing while I was doing it, so I started making lists. Oh, that's what I was doing.
And I think you have to give yourself a break. You're getting tremendous amount of neuro input to balance and move with Parkinson's, and then add medication to that that says go even when you're resting. So again, that's another stimulus to your system that says, makes it difficult to concentrate sometimes. So if you got something saying go, 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 and I call it PD restlessness, a lot of people want to call it restless leg syndrome, or just that uneasiness of Parkinson's after your medication. It can be very disturbing when you're just sitting and resting. But again, that is another way you can prevent you from reading. If you have a lot of apoptoid motions, you're not going to remember it very well.
Grangeville.
No questions here. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Kennewick.
The Rockwell, Dr. Rockwell used to come.
Grangeville, need to mute your mic. Kennewick.
No question.
Thank you. Kirkland.
And also stiffness getting up in the morning. If you think satin sheets and satin sleepwear is good or bad?
Well, good for mobility, bad for safety. You can slide out of bed. So it really depends on you individually. If you're more at risk from sliding out of bed because of restless dreams or vivid dreams, or just not realizing where you're at in bed, then I would caution you on getting satin sheets. Now you can create a bed tent to help you move, especially this time of year in this cold winter we've been having. Heavy blankets is a nice way to prevent you from rolling out of bed, but it's also a good way for making it difficult to move in bed. So you can create a bed tent where your covers are suspended, meaning you put a pillow at the bottom of your bed. I've even used hula hoops to create a bridge so the covers are up over your feet so you can move your feet freely. Again, with Parkinson's, it's usually the feet that are the most difficult to move, like you said, the stiffness and rigidity. And then before you get up, just do some light marching of your arms and your legs, do some pelvic tilts, some pelvic rocks of your knees back and forth. Again, you can call me at my clinic if you're out of town, or email me at lenNKS@yahoo if you want specifics. That's lenNKS@yahoo. But again, those aspects, just get moving before you get up as best you can. That'll allow you to get moving much more efficiently than trying to trudge through your Parkinsons in the morning. That's usually the toughest time to get moving because you haven't moved all night. Yes? Richard?
Thank you.
Do I get a microphone?
Thank you very much.
I have my own way of keeping warm. I sleep on top of the bedspread. I sleep with a heavy bathrobe on and my socks, and got unlimited mobility.
Did you guys hear that? Richard's solution to that is sleep on top of the bed with a heavy bathrobe and socks. That way he's freely moving above the covers and allows him to move more freely. That's not a bad solution. Depends on your comfort level and your styles like that.
When you deal with your sheets as well, I found that if I go to a higher thread count, that you don't get the slickness of the satin, but you're able to move much more easily between the sheets. The 1,200, 1,500 thread counts, they're spendy, but it really does help. Kirkland, we just came from Kirkland. Any other in Kirkland?
No more questions.
Thank you. Miles City.
Yes, I fall quite a bit, and the lady I live with, she tells me I try to do too many things at once. And a lot of times when I'm walking, I start stepping back with choppy steps, and that's when I fall.
So, you're stutter stepping, or are you falling backwards?
Backwards.
Well, falling backwards.
Okay, so are you using a walker or cane, or what are you using?
I'm using I had a friend a few weeks ago get a walking stick, and it helps quite a bit.
Good, I would recommend
And I
that.
keep
So usually when you're falling backwards with Parkinson's, it's an overcompensation to the fear of falling forward. Literally, you're stutter stepping, and then you start losing it, and then you rock back suddenly to control that forward, and you're throwing yourself off. But you want to, the stick has helped you maintain neutral in that upright posture. So look at your posture, making sure you're looking at eye level at everything your path is putting in front of you. And then, like you said, if you're multitasking, you're asking your body to do too much. Try to do one thing at a time and don't get distracted. You have to be very focused with Parkinson's. Otherwise, it's too many things, too much stimulus to get to a point type thing. So, but it's rare for, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to fall backwards. Parkinson's is usually the only people who fall forward religiously. So, because of the nature of the disease, of that rigidity, of that pulling back of Parkinson's, it just seems to freeze your feet.
Anything else, Miles City?
No,
Thank you.
thank you.
Pendleton.
Yes, we have one question. What do you do when you freeze up?
Okay, when freezing, are you getting up out of a chair or walking? Kennewick?
Pendleton.
Oh, Pendleton?
Now.
Are you freezing?
No, I'm freezing when I walk or when I get up out of the chair. Either way.
Okay, either way. So freezing out of a chair, what you want to do is kind of see what your posture's like. You need to scoot forward out of the chair. You need to make sure your momentum is getting up. You may try to put yourself in what's called a diagonal stance, meaning your non-dominant leg forward, your dominant leg back, and then rock forward to 90 degrees, take a bow, and then stand up. The caution with freezing is you need to get all the way up. You'll go right into a freezing pattern. If you're locked and holding on to a chair handle, you need to let go and then lengthen your knees up and straighten up before you ever going. When walking, you want to make sure if you start freezing, you usually start stutter stepping first. So you want to, once you start feeling like your nose is going over your toes walking, you need to kind of look up, lean back, rock side to side, and get your weight shift neutral again. It's important that you do what's called a little hula exercise if you're freezing when you're walking. Again, you got to be careful of your visual line. If you're looking down, you're going to freeze. If you're checking yourself always down, you're going to freeze often, okay? So check your visual line, make sure it stays up, make sure your weight stays even, and then you should control your freeze. Any questions?
Yeah, also I fall about 10 times a day.
Are you falling on your knees?
Yeah, I fall, what do you say?
Are you falling? Yeah, are you
Yeah, I
falling?
fall.
You are
Fall
falling
about
on
10
your
times a
knees?
day. I'm on average, I'm on average, but once in a while I fall 10 times.
Do you fall on your knees?
On the knees, no. Fall
Okay.
forward on my hands, arms, whatever.
Okay, so
Use backwards.
yeah, you're in a pretty severe case of freezing then, because you've taken away all your ability to protect yourself. I would definitely address that with a physical therapy clinic there who specialize in neurologic disorders. We need to get you really looking up, looking back, and getting you addressing your balance issue because you're pushing yourself literally over your toes. You may talk to your neurologist about your medication to see if you're having on and off periods that are causing these rapid episodes. You just can't tolerate landing on your hands and your nose too often.
No.
That's going to cause a problem. So
I have heard that one time.
yeah, what you might try is trying to do what I call a power stance, is just 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, and just rock back and forth before you ever get going. Now, can you stop yourself ever when freezing?
I have, a little bit,
Okay.
sometimes.
And again, what do? Hold on to something? Can control it, or are you able to hold yourself back?
I kind of start, like you start backwards, I'll start forward, and I'll stop.
Okay, so again, you're kind of like the gentleman who may throw himself backwards in order to go forward. So that's something that we need to address clinically, probably. So that's something you need to really work on, aggressive therapy to improve your neutral balance and your neutral posture. The one thing I can give you today is if you look up and not look down, do not reach for things. When you're in that festinating or freezing motion, you need to stay up, look up, stop, and then start again. And you may have to start doing that several times. I had a patient once upon a time where he learned to just drop to his knees rather than fall on his face. Not a bad technique, except the first 3 months I had to work on his knees and give him knee pads. But again, we finally taught him that that's not an appropriate strategy. Literally, you may be using that as a behavioral strategy to keep moving. Unfortunately, it's a strategy that's causing you to potentially have a head injury, or a broken wrist, or collarbone, or worse, a hip type injury. So definitely something you need to address. And it's going to be something you need to constantly work on. Don't push through Parkinson's. If you push through Parkinson's, you're going to fall. And it's going to create more reactions to your Parkinson's rather than help your Parkinson's. And that's the hardest part with Parkinson's, is you just can't force yourself through it. You have to basically understand the strategies and take away some of the compensatory strategies that are natural to Parkinson's.
Anything else, Pendleton?
No, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pullman? Pullman?
Me?
You there, Griffin?
Goodman's in Moscow.
They showed me Pullman here at Region Hospital, but nobody's answering up. Penasket?
No questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. I have one here in Spokane.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Age groups more frequently for onset in older people or younger?
Are we talking Parkinson's or falls?
Parkinson's.
Yeah, it's generally an aged person's disease. Young onset Parkinson's is getting more and more current. It's an industrial disease. It's a modern man's disease. And I think it has many etiology of the disease. We just don't know what the cause still is. So, but again, it's related to seniors type thing. You could have Parkinsonian. There's, I think, 8 or 10 different Parkinsonian-like disorders that can be affected with medication. That's generally the diagnostic principle. If you throw dopamine at you and it works, then you have Parkinson's. There's no MRI, no dopamine test out there for that, which we would, but then we could easily see it 10 years earlier if you can start, just like diabetes, if you take a blood test and your dopamine level, then you take a bump in dopamine. But it's nothing like that yet. So I think we're getting more and more the aspect of DNA and your aspects of genealogy and where you're at environmentally speaking. Spokane is an epicenter for Parkinson's and MS and dystonia-like diseases. So,
It's in the rocks.
that's probably in the air.
George, I
Well,
have a question too. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Is there someone else in
I've got two more. I'll come back, okay? Walla Walla, you have any questions?
Yes, I have a couple.
Thank you.
People that help me often offer their arm. Some people hold their arms down all the way to their side, others bend it at the elbow. Is there a way that is safest for the Parkinson's person? I also have a friend that wants to take my arm instead of my taking their arm, and I'm just wondering what you suggest.
Yeah, I can address it. Basically, it depends on your height. If he's a very tall person and he's helping you, then at his waist is fine. It should be at your comfortable reach, wherever that person is helping you. You're correct in don't let somebody take your arm. That'll cause a reaction, protective reaction, and it can cause you to freeze. Take their arm, maybe use their shoulder rather than their hand or arm, depending on their height, and allow them to, you guide them and they guide you. If somebody grabs you, it's the worst thing you can do. Just imagine yourself in a dark room and you can't see anything and then somebody grabs you. It's a similar reaction with Parkinson's. You go in immediately protective response and kind of freeze up, just because you don't have the balance reaction to have somebody else pulling you or pushing you type thing. So you're already on, your balance is already triggered because of Parkinson's. Somebody add more to your plate, so to speak, and that can cause you to do that. So always be the one to request the assistance and reach out for them. Just don't reach out too far.
Any more in Walla Walla? I'm seeing you wave. Is that Walla Walla waving? Do you have another question? We can't hear you.
Sounds like maybe she's waiting for someone.
I'll try again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I go from on times to off times within about 30 seconds, it seems. And there are times that I'll talk myself. I'll say, well, now just 3 steps. I can make 3 steps. And it's almost as if my brain will kick in at times. And yet, there are other times I'm almost afraid to try that.
I think you're doing the right thing, and you just got to still keep talking to yourself and allow yourself to relax. The stress and frustration of Parkinson's can cause you that fear factor. You can look back on the archives of the Parkinson's resource. I have an article on that fear factor aspect. Understanding that you're doing the right thing, you may have to kind of continue to coach yourself. And it sounds like you're having a balanced reaction and a protective reaction if that's that quick. It usually wouldn't be medication related if it's happening that rapidly. So don't start playing with your medication based on that. You may talk to your doctor about Azilect, which kind of extends your dopamine to give you better gas in between. But again, I'm not a physician, so talk to your doctor before changing or adding any medication. I said including vitamins and supplements because they can affect your Parkinson's medicine, i.e. protein.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Walla Walla. Virginia Mason. Seattle. Moving on, Olmec.
usually at the end, I'm kind of surprised.
I added some on here on the road, I mean, they're write-ins, you know, when you get to be on the register, you make it okay. All back? Any more here in Spokane?
Anchorage.
Anchorage, all right, Anchorage, I got one here in Spokane, can I come back to you in a moment?
Yep.
Thank you.
He forgets to take his cane when he's walking. He'll come tottering into another room and there's no cane. Where's your cane? Well, I don't know. Are there any cues that could help remember?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a common problem. We have, to reproduce the question, a patient is forgetting his assistive device, his cane, generally, what to do to help remember the cane. There are little sensor clips that you can hook on, i.e. to one object and you yourself, and if you leave that, it clips off and it sounds an alarm. You can do something like that. I think you can get them at Radio Shack. It's a little tab meter. It's also good for somebody who gets up repetitively. It's a sensor alarm. It gets pulled out of their alarm. And beep, 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 beep. It may scare the heck out of the patient and you. So another thing is literally get a Velcro leash. So again, if he long enough, usually the little strap things are cumbersome that come around the handle. I'm talking about the little wrist loop that comes with them. You wouldn't do that because you want to use your hand then, but you may extend from that loop a little, if you will, a leash to it, or a cord. So again, if he gets up without it, he'll drag it behind it, and hopefully, the only problem with that is with a cane is if it falls to the floor, you're asking for another balance reaction. And generally, a patient will reach and grab their cane off the floor, and that can be a whole other story. Forgetting an assistive device is not an uncommon thing with seniors, i.e. you get up, your walker's right in front of you, and you walk right past your walker. That's where you have to set up an environment, have the assistive device in the path, not in front of the patient when they're getting up, because again, it could be literally, if it's sitting next to the nightstand and they're going to their left and the nightstand's on the right, they'll just forget it and go to the left. If that's their destination, that's their cognitive pattern, that's where I'm going to go. So again, putting that in the far wall or next to the end of the bed may be an assistive device that they'll track and use. If you don't see it, you won't use it, basically.
Thank you. Anchorage, you had another question?
Yes, go ahead. I got a comment to make on bedding. I find if I use a lightweight, goose down comforter and a very good quality sheet and a loud warm, have a lightweight cover that I can go around in and it really is much more comfortable. And put the comforter in A and B to hold it. It works very well.
So is that a question or just kind of a comment?
The comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lightweight covers and smooth sheets will help you have more bed mobility, or more ability to move. Today's lecture was on safety, and most people are falling out of bed in that aspect. So again, it's a kind of a catch-22. If you dream real heavy and you're getting these really interesting deep dreams that Parkinsons can have, even night terrors to some extent, it's very frightening to wake up on the floor during a fall. And usually that's where you can get a pretty significant head injury because of the nightstand. If you fall into that and wake up during that, then it could be a problem. So.
Len, thanks a lot here. Here's your, how many have you got?
I got 5. Anybody want a parky?
Parky?
I got them in every car.
Thank you and everybody. I have a couple of closing things.
Excuse me, this is Clarkson.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like, could you please, Len, repeat your email address very slowly?
LENNKS@Yahoo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clarkson. I'm sorry I didn't pick up on that.
This will also be on the PRC newsletter and their website too.
Just quickly to mention our sponsors, that's the PRC of Spokane, Northwest Parkinsons Foundation, St. Luke's Rehab, and the Albertsons Grant. Next month, we'll be having the session will originate at the Northwest Parkinsons Foundation Seattle. Presentation will be strategies for dealing with apathy and Parkinson's disease. None of us ever get apathetic with Parkinson's. We don't know. Presenter will be Dr. Monique Giroux. Dr. Giroux is the director of the Parkinson's Resource Center at the Booth Gardner Center at Evergreen Hospital in Kirkland. July's presentation will be originate here at St. Luke's and will feature Dr. Susie Rowe. She's a new neurologist moving into the area for practice, and she's going to be speaking on Parkinson's and sleeping disorders. Let me reiterate that the Parkinson's Resource Center here in Spokane and the Society of Vintage Racing Enthusiasts will be hosting the Mercedes of Spokane Festival of Speed. Fun races, good day, all days, prices are really low. That's June 4th and 5th if you're interested. For those of you who remember, I hope you're practicing your large muscle penmanship skills so you can keep your hands working right, nice and clean and neat. And lastly, if you have any success stories that you would like to share about your Parkinson's and how it worked, you know, something that worked right for you, would you email those to me at GAMEND, that's like the end of a prayer, the D on the end.
Repeat that.
GAMEND at PTERA, I'll say that one more time, PTERA.net. What we'll do is we'll try to share them later on in the year so we give you a chance to kind of say, hey, it works, you know, because all of us have got those experiences that have made it go really well. Are we done? Thank you all of those who've logged in from outside. Have a wonderful day. Hope maybe spring comes again, and thanks, Len, for being here with us.